Welcome to the Lovecars On The Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiff Needell, and Paul Woodman.
Welcome to Lovecars On The Grid, your global motorsport podcast roundup. We look back on a mega weekend of motorsport, starting with the Formula One in Canada. It really came alive. All the action in the TT racing, Michael Dunlop breaking his uncle's record, Joey's record. BTCC at Thruxton, Tiff's home circuit. Plus plenty of debate about the 2026 F1 regulations. I know Tiff wants to jump on the bandwagon a bit there. And also, what we've got to kick off with, the amazing news from America, Chadwick making all the headlines. And I'm delighted to say we've got young Chadwick on this podcast joining us right now.
Brilliant.
But we got her brother, Ollie, not Jamie, just so you know.
Well, that's still good. It's still an exclusive. It's still an exclusive Chadwick on Lovecars.
It is an exclusive, and Ollie, in his own right, is a very good racing driver. He's done quite a bit of racing in his time, but you must be so proud of your sister right now, as we all are. Not our sister, your sister.
Yeah, no, finally it's all come together. You know, they had qualifying, and they've got the split groups there, and her session second. They did have the slightly dry conditions, so she got pole, and we thought, well, okay, you know, the pace was good from testing. It was top 5, but you know, let's see where it goes. It's a long race, but you know, she got out in the lead, and you know what, she didn't put a foot wrong. You know, dealt with 2 restarts, a red flag. You know, it was an honest 10 out of 10, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a brother.
Were you there, Ollie?
No, I wish. No, we were all watching it live, you know, on Sky Sports. But it was pretty tense. But
how soon did you get to talk to her after the race then?
Yeah, I've had a brief chat with her, but her phone with social media has just exploded.
What?
I'm not surprised.
Is it a big family thing? I don't see your parents around that often. They're low-profile parents. Are they sitting at home wishing mum wishing she wasn't doing it, or are they keen supporters?
No, they were. Then, you know, the early days when it's all UK based, you know, they're always there. But as she's got older, sort of management teams have grown, and she's you know, very independent, travels there on her own and stuff. But you know, they're always in the background, and parents and family. We'll go to a couple in America this year, but no, left her to it this time. But we're always, you know, watching every session. You know, it's all broadcast live on the website.
So I've got to say, Ollie, sorry, I was just going to say that both Tiff and I put our hands up. Said, oh, you know, she's so fast, but the difference between being very fast and exceptional, there's a big difference, and we never thought she quite had it, but she's proved us wrong. My goodness, she's always does it with such a amazing positivity and this big smile on her face whenever you see her or speak to her or meet her, and on the TV camera as well. It's not just for show. She's you know, so much respect for her, and you can see that with social media, what everybody's saying about her all throughout the world.
No, I'm an avid listener to your podcast, and I hear Tiff's constructive criticism, but it's, you know, it's always fair. And she took a big step over the winter. The big thing for her was the physicality of the cars. Yeah. You know, they are, you know, reasonably heavy for what they are. You know, 700 kilos with a driver, 500 horsepower with push to pass, and it's the physicality of no power steering. But she's worked on that. You know, she's been building the start of this year. Been a bit unlucky. She's made a few mistakes, but you know, got that podium earlier in the year, and you know, it's really built on it now with a win.
I had a long chat with Goodwood actually at the members meeting, and she talked about his fitness, you know, and I think that's the big thing. She said it has made a difference. She had a great learning year last year. You know, she was sort of top six just about. And also she lacked aggression. I always thought the opening lap she'd drop back. There'd always be a bit of a gap in front of her after the opening lap, and she'd have pressure from behind. But the way she took all those restarts, that's the difference to me. She can defend well, but she can now demonstrate in that race to run a lead pace. You know, I mean, Louis got close to it, but about halfway through, Louis had a huge charge at her because, of course, he dropped back to 5th or 6th by, you know, he tried to get around the outside of her at the first turn, but she wasn't fazed by that. Louis went flying off the road. And that one time he got right in the toe and had a good run at her, but I think he'd cooked his tires by then and realised that she wasn't giving in easily. And then she managed those restarts so professionally. You know, she sat in the pit lane, had a red flag, then they've got 3 laps to go to make sure that the race didn't finish under a safety car. But Jamie wasn't upset. She was really upset with that. Just finish up, please just finish under us. But they didn't. They put them in the pits, made her do another restart with just 2 laps to run. and she pulled away. I mean, it was really, really impressive. And now she's just got to do it again and again. And but I mean, hold on a minute. Weren't you quicker than her in Jeanettas? Aren't you thinking maybe I should, come get my racing career back on? Aren't you pointing that out to the press?
Well, back in the day. But I enjoyed the success in it. It's nice to see that, drivers that I've raced against doing quite well in various series and stuff. But even she did Ginetta Juniors the year. Lando Norris did it. A few others. And then who did she race with? She briefly was with Double R with Linus, so she's quite close to Linus, who was on pole in IndyCar. Unfortunately, he got taken out. So you're growing up around a lot of drivers that have gone on to do good things. But no, she's thrilled with it, and she had to work for it.
Yeah. And what are the next steps? What would she love to do next? Would it be IndyCar or?
I don't know if there's a fixed plan as such. Obviously, see this year out. It's nice she's involved with Andretti. To be involved with a big team like that's got sort of avenues going in different directions is nice. IndyCar, it'd be an option. It'd be good for her to, with that link with Andretti, have a go in a car. I know Louis Foster's had a go in one of their cars, so that'd be nice. Sports cars, but I think this year is see where it goes. They've got a couple of ovals coming up, so that'd be good to see how she gets on those. Year 2 round, but. And also climb up the standings. She didn't have the best start to the year, so she's ninth, but she could, on merit, be in the top 5 by now. So if she can, be consistent throughout the rest of the year, it'd be nice to, finish a bit higher up.
Yeah, race by the same Pete was a classic Chadwick race, taken out on the first lap, just to begin her season. So she's definitely missed out on some points early on. And of course, it's good to see Louis Foster out there, young British lad as well. And it was good that she fended off Louis Foster, because Louis probably rated as the quickest driver in a one-lap situation, and it was good that she was defending from the best in the field. Good stuff.
He'd had 3 wins on a bounce coming into that.
Yeah,
and I said to her, because down the last straight, he was closing, and she said she was running a bit more downforce. So through the middle sector, she could get away a bit.
Yeah.
But then that last sector, he would close up, and of course, there's push to pass. You don't know when you don't know on the TV when they're using it or not.
Yeah. That was great stuff. And it wasn't a reverse grid. It was a proper win.
Proper win. Yeah.
Fending off the championship leader initially, and then the championship challenger. So the 2 behind her were the top 2 of the championship. It wasn't Muppets behind her. It was a very impressive drive. One of the greatest tracks, one of the most challenging circuits in the world.
The 2 females before her, were they from reverse grid, or were they from the front as well, normal grid? Do you know?
There was Pippa Mann a while ago. Yeah.
Well, you have to mention Catherine Legg, to be fair, because it wasn't NXT then. She was running in Formula Atlantic, which was the second division really in those days. She had 3 wins back in about 2006, I think. So, Pippa Mann won on an oval. And I'm going to mention Catherine Legg also, of course, has had a great career, which is the sort of thing that Jamie could look forward to. Catherine, she did IndyCar as well. She moved up to the top level, done half a season before she had a huge crash at Road America. Back in 2005, she won from Atlantic. But, Catherine's proves that she had a great career. She's doing Indianapolis this year. Yeah. So who knows where Jamie will go next? But we've all followed the story right from the word go. We've taken the mickey occasionally about the women's series, and you've got to race up against men. You can't prove yourself hiding away in a one-sex series. And when she started IndyCar, a year and a half ago, I thought it was very brave with the words I used. That she was going off to America where there are ovals and taking on a formula that's high speed. And brave moves. That's turning out all good at the moment. Send her our love, brother.
We'll do, absolutely. No, we will do, for sure.
Right, thanks, Ollie. We're going to move on to Formula 1 Canada. Let me take Ollie off. There we go. Ollie's gone. Ollie's gone. The joys of technology. We're both rubbish with technology, but it was just incredible. So that's going to hide my blushes of technical glitches.
So do we talk about the gossip first, or we go for the race itself?
Well, the main gossip, as I said in the intro, the main gossip is now that everybody's finally caught up to Red Bull, they're going to change the regs. And it's just such a shame. And I know you've been bleating on about this on social media.
I'm trying to start a campaign. Well, I said it on this very podcast 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I keep the rules. Let's just... Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying I particularly like the cars we've got at the moment, but they're overweight, 2 big machines. But because the others have caught up with the Red Bull tricks that got them ahead at the first, we've got some fantastic racing. And it's not exactly, as I said, the DRS and the battery, but the racing is good. And there's been plenty of occasions in the past where people, I think even IndyCar, they were going to go hybrid this a year ago or something. The people have postponed regulation changes. And I'm really saying, that this should be done. Even Lewis Hamilton's been quoted as saying he's worried that they're not going in the right direction. George Russell's saying they're almost going to be too fast going down those high-speed straights when all the area goes flat. They'll have very little downforce. They'll be floating along. The McLaren guy, Andre Seller, said they're too fast in the straights and too slow in the corners. And the people talking about the X mode and the Z mode, and will the new generation of Formula One fans that they've all brought in with this Drive to Survive, will they even understand what on earth's going on? So I don't see any reason why they couldn't postpone it for a year, because they're only just writing the regulations, which they're announcing, I think, at the end of this month. But the trouble is, it's lured Audi and Ford was so Liberty's excuses. We had to change the rules because new manufacturers are interested in them. Honda wanted them, and Ford, of course, are paying for Red Bull's engine, and Audi are coming in. That the manufacturers wanted these new engines. It's the engine problem that's caused the whole chassis problem in a way, because trying to make 50% petrol, 50% synthetic fuel and 50% battery power work, it's a real problem. So I'm seriously saying, this is so good now. Make a decision now to make 2026, 2027 at least.
They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it, Tiff. It's done. It's a done deal.
I'm sure Liberty listen to our podcast with great interest every week. I'm sure they'll be thinking that boy Tiff, he's got the right idea. But it's not
you
just
probably have. The racers amongst us do feel the same way. And for those who didn't see the new car that came out, and they're saying they're going to be smaller and lighter, but it's so marginal.
2 inches.
Yeah, exactly. It's really silly. They make such a big song and dance about it. In the news for me, I saw on Sky Sports before the Grand Prix, they showed how they start the race, and quite a boring thing. They press a button and the lights go on, and then they go off. But the lady who does it, English lady who does it, quite fascinating. My mind is blown. So this lovely lady presses the button, and then she decides how long she keeps her finger on that button before the lights come off. So when blew my mind.
It was computer. I just thought it was a computer thing.
No, it's not random. So
random.
She decides. So she could have her best mate. I'm not saying this for 1 second.
No,
Lewis Hamilton.
Lewis
Hamilton, and say, "Oh, Lewis, I'm going to do it on 1 second today, or count to three." But that blew my mind. That is all done by a manual process. But a lovely lady, and a lovely story as well, because she used to install these. She used to install the light systems, and now she's gone on to be the button presser. Yeah. Not a button presser. That sounded really, really awful. Because she's got a very serious big job, but I can't believe it's a manual process.
Look at that. Now, before we get into the amazing race, which was just best Grand Prix of the year, probably, the driver merry-go-round was continuing. And Red Bull, nobody knows, apart from you, Paul, with your inside knowledge you've had, what goes on behind closed doors at Red Bull.
I give up.
I mean, has Checo got money? All of a sudden, Checo's re-signed. And we're all going, you've got to be kidding. What a boring thing to have. And does he still bring Mexican money? The quote was Max likes him. Max likes him because he doesn't challenge him at all. Then after the Canada race will come on to it, Checo didn't make it through Q1. Helmut Marko is saying it was a psychological problem. Well, Helmut, surely you're the one with a psychological. You've just signed him for 2 more years. I suggest someone at Red Bull's psychological problem of signing him. I mean, it's bizarre. Anyway, Checo's got that seat. So that's
Checo has scored 4 points in the last 3 races.
There's either Mexican money still going through, or just they don't want to risk anybody else upsetting Max. Who knows? Well, he's still got 7 drivers on the bench. Sainz, Ocon, Ricciardo, K-Mag, Sargent, Bottas, Zhao, for the 7 seats. We've also got 4 kids coming in: Liam Lawson, Ollie Behrman, Antonelli, Doohan. So they're the 4 names. So who goes where? I mean, Mercedes, I think, are getting closer and closer to signing Antonelli straight in, because they're testing him now. He's allowed to test 2-year-old cars. So they're seeing him drive a Grand Prix car. And I think that would be the preference. Otherwise, he might go to Williams.
Well, you say that, but they put their cards on the table and said they want Sainz in. But does Sainz want to go to Williams?
Well, the Sainz is the big one. Where does Sainz go? Because Sainz, I think, he might have been offered 1 year at Mercedes, so that he didn't like that because they're bringing Antonelli in after 1 year. So I think the Sainz to Williams is probably the stronger. I mean, of all the people that won't be back, I think poor old Logan Sargent's top of the list. And it's a shame. I think, he mustn't regret it. I mean, he did really well in Formula 3 and Formula 2. He's brought some money. And he's had his 2 years. And this is why I would say get youngsters in. They don't have to stay forever. Give him a couple of years. And he's had his moments of glory, but unfortunately Canada wasn't one of them apart from qualifying. So Sargent will go out. Bottas is quoting, "I'm trying to decide which of the teams chasing me I'm going to pick." I mean,
oh my goodness, what a load of rubbish.
I don't know why. And so Bottas, the latest thing was, I think I'll probably choose Williams. Please, Williams, just don't.
The best thing Bottas has done in the last 4 years is that Uber advert he did in Australia. Yeah. That's the best thing he's done in the last 4 years.
Of course, Alpine dropped Ocon, so that's another seat going. But alongside Gasly's definitely going to stay on. So where does Ocon? He's a very talented driver. So he could go to Williams, he could go to Mercedes. So
but he's not a team player. He's not.
Well, I know
he's
a wild.
He doesn't
card.
Tick every box. He is a wild card, and his attitude after, during, and after this race was no good. But he is a good driver.
RB confirms Yuki Tsunoda, which I think is good. Still haven't confirmed Ricciardo. And of course, Ricciardo had this Canadian Grand Prix build-up with Villeneuve kicking off. And he actually made a good point. He said what he believed, and he said it factually. He just looked back through Ricciardo's record and said, when he beat Vettel was in a depressed low mode, and, he hasn't done much since. He doesn't deserve a seat. And then, when Daniel had a really good race, he kicked off, and he sort of personally insulted Villeneuve, saying he's a dickhead or something, And Villeneuve's come back and said, well, why the personal attack? That's just my opinion anyway. So,
we've been saying that for months and months and months about Daniel Ricciardo, as lovely as he is.
Yeah, his Canada performance obviously hasn't helped RB. But the rumour feeling is that he's still not going to get that seat. So I'm not sure who would, because we haven't got any Red Bull protégés coming up through the ranks, so we don't really know. So Ricciardo's favourite to get it just because he's a good PR for the sponsors. That's what they're sort of saying. Then Sauber, that's the other big choice for Sainz, Sauber. But they're told they won't have a competitive car for a couple of years. Haas haven't got anybody. Hopefully, we all hope Ollie Behrman's going to have one Sauber, one Haas. And then there's Zhao. You see, Zhao. There are all these drivers that seem to be staying in for non-driving reasons. So Ricciardo stays in because the sponsors love him. Bottas stays in because he's got experience, and we want experienced drivers. And Zhao, Liberty wanted Chinese driver without a doubt. So there'll be pressure.
Same with Logan Sargent to now, and also the same with Perez, apparently with the money in Mexico.
The Red Bull sell a lot in the Mexico. This is the trouble, that half the field is drivers are there because they suit the political and financial will of the team. So there's 7 drivers and at least 4 rookies that could be in there. So the merry-go-round goes on, and I think Sainz has said by the end of the month that things should be settling. It seems to be end of June is. Anyway, so that was the backdrop to what then became this fantastic Grand Prix. I mean, it just weather again, reduce the grip, you get a better race.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Oh dear. So reduce, have them going slow around corners. Take more of that flippant aero off them. Make them work harder in the corners. Yes, they might be slower than they were 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I don't care. They might be slower than a Formula 2 car. Well, then take some power out of the Formula 2 car if you wanted. That's easily done. You could just demote the engines. But it was a weird weather, was it? They had 4 seasons in 3 days, I think. It was rain and dry. They only had one dry session in the FP3 to get their cars sorted out, so that they're all floundering around. And then when it came to the crunch, so we had this Checo Perez out in Q1. And
again. Too often. It's just unacceptable. I don't. How is he there? It's just so bizarre.
And then sadly, both Ferraris going, what? I don't understand Formula One enough to understand how. Well, not anybody, all the experts. Well, why a Ferrari winning at Monaco? They're both out in Q2. I think the interesting thing is that the white was a great weekend as well, a bit like Sao Paulo in Brazil. It was a short track with not many corners. So you've got reasonable straights and then only, 5 or 6 or 7 challenging corners or little sections. So because there's only 7 sections that sort of sort out the driver's skills in a way, you've only make one mistake at one of the 7 corners, lose a tenth or 2, and you're on the bottom. Leclerc, I think, he was only about 0.15 behind Max, who was 7th in Q2. So it was that close to getting into Q2. But these tracks throw up these close grids, throw up people not making it through, and end up having great races. Especially with when Max equaled George's time to the 1,000th of a second with the battle for pole. So it was great qualifying. That was entertaining enough. Qualifying was exciting. And this race that kicked off in the rain, it was just wonderful. They're all out on the intermediates except the 2 Hasses. So you had this great story of the Hasses on the wet tyres charging up. Well, Magnussen went from 14th to 4th before it got too dry.
But did you hear Crofty? They were saying, the commentary was saying, why isn't everyone on wets? This is amazing. Look how good Magnussen is. He's so much faster than everybody else. And then 2 minutes later, he's got a pit for intermediates, and he's back down in 17th or 18th.
I know. It might have rained more. It could have rained harder. Who knows? But actually, talking about the Sky Sport, there was a weird thing in qualifying when Max came in after his thingy was going on about it's his brakes. I can smell the brakes. No, it wasn't the brakes. It was the ECU or something. But there was pit mechanics with a grinder. They couldn't get the side pod off. This was going on while they were waffling on about facts and figures. And Logan Sargent was the first American since 1981. It was 5th fastest. God knows what Crofty and his facts that go on and bore me to death. But there was a grinder going on, and 3 more mechanics coming, and they're trying to pull the pod off. So obviously something was jamming, but there was no mention of it. I do not know why. All the tweeters saying that Red Bull have said, if you ever say anything bad about our garage, we'll never speak to you again. I don't know, but it was fascinating to me because that was actually a bit of side story that I did want to know. Well,
I don't know. Maybe it's just
how are side pods attached? Are they a screw fix? How are they attached? And why it needed a grinder to get it off. So that was weird. Why that wasn't brought up. Anyway, going back to the brilliant race. I mean, it was just, but Lando really. But Lando lost it twice. And Christian Horner, I mean, he does these things this is why he falls out with a lot of people. He gloated over the fact. He was gloating. He needed to speak to the press after Max had won. And instead of just saying, we had a great win, he had to grind McLaren in by saying they lost it twice. You know what? It's just not necessary, Christian. The first time was because he stayed out an extra. I thought actually I was going to have a bang at the organisers because I thought the FIA had thrown the safety car after Lando had gone through the chicane. But they didn't. It happened when he was coming down the straight, and McLaren dithered for a bit and made him stay out, and therefore he lost his lead. He had about a 10-second lead. So that was where they lost the race the first time. The second time, this is Christian Horner's highlighted this one, was when he stayed out on the intermediates, when everyone else came in for slicks a lap earlier. And Lando, because the intermediates were still quicker, so you can see the logic, because he was still increasing his lead. But of course, he was increasing it over people that just come out with wets on slippery surfaces. So by the time he got in, the slippery surface had gone, and the others, and we had this wonderful moment when Max is coming around his warm slicks on the dry line, and Lando's coming out trying to get the power down on the wet with his slicks. And
that itself is probably 1.5 seconds, just maybe 2 seconds, just that what period of 100 yards on the wet with 1,000 horsepower where you can't do anything.
So I'm afraid Lando's strategy's lost in the race twice.
Don't say that because it was a good race.
Well, Lando said it this morning. After the race, he joked about it, and he said, well, I won one with a safety car, helped me in Miami. I don't mind if I lose. But I think when he went home and thought about it, he thought, I got to think about young people's etiquette, drivers' etiquette. I got a little bit of a bugbear with Lando because he was on
Look, for the national anthem, whatever country it is, you've got to respect the anthem. Take your hats off and just stand there and respect the anthem. And Lando's there and he's putting his hand up and waving to people and cheering.
No, do that.
I don't think he should do that.
Good point. Speak to Lando's agent. Good point. But what a grump. We had this sight, didn't we, of 5 cars in a row almost, a Red Bull, a Mercedes, 2 McLarens, 2 Mercedes, If only the Ferraris had been on their pace, why? Nobody knows. You imagine that? Yeah. They've been in the mix as well. We'd had a 7-car battle for the lead. And also, there was a huge battle for the last few remaining points, wasn't it? The 2 RBs.
It was brilliant the whole way through.
Yuki had Ricciardo behind him, putting pressure on. The 2 Alpines were in there. And of course, it was Ricciardo that eventually got 8th place, and Gasly and Ocon 9th and 10th without hitting each other. Amazing, Ocon didn't lunge Gasly at the last corner and take them both out. He's not happy, Ocon. The worst story was Albon, I thought, taken out by Sainz, because he was running ahead of the Alpines, I think, both of them, and Carlos just lost control in front of him and took Albon out. He doesn't have the best of luck with being taken out by people, Albon.
He hasn't. He's such a classy guy. He's a great driver, such a classy guy. I hope Williams are really getting it together. If you listen to James Vowles, he says, look, I didn't come here just to be mediocre. We feel like we're going to get it together. So
he can talk the talk, but can he walk the walk?
He's going there for the dough.
And then, of course, we have Perez dropping it all on his own. Bashes his wing, drives it home with the wing hanging off. He's got a 3-place grid penalty now for Barcelona. So even if he gets through to Q2, if he's lucky enough to get into Q2, he's going back 3 places. I don't know. But
in my life, I've got a bit of a mantra that I want everyone to succeed, everyone to do well. I'm not envious. I'm passionate about everybody, whatever they do. But Perez in that seat, he should not be there. However nice a person he is, whatever background, whatever happens in his life, he should not be in that seat.
Of course, DRS worked well. It's a triple DRS circuit. That also keeps you closer together all the time. You can't string the pack out. So, I mean, the speed differential was always quite frightening down the end of that real fast straight. So the DRS is working.
Especially when there's only one dry line and you've got to try and brake, and because it's awful if you get off that dry line, it's a horrible.
Well, George and Oscar side by side, that was a spectacular moment.
Well, the most spectacular moment by far was Albon. He did the double overtake at the end of the straight. He went left.
He sort of had nowhere to go, didn't he? He had the DRS. And he was alongside, I think it was Hulkenberg, and he caught up an Alpine in front of him, and then, where can I go? So he just slotted it through. So well done, Formula One. You see, we praise Formula One when it happens, but it mainly happened because it was wet and dry and a short track with not too many silly, fiddly corners. Oh,
very good.
And all those circuits that Tilke's built that were stuck with for years to come.
Yeah, hopefully Ferrari will be back for Barcelona, and we'll have 4 teams really in the mix.
Of course, Barcelona notorious for being a boring race, so that remains to be seen. Maybe they'll add a bit more DRS distance for Barcelona.
Even with the disastrous Grand Prix in Canada for Ferrari, they're only 49 points behind Red Bull, thanks to Checo Perez.
One-handed, and they're racing with one hand behind their back. I suppose they won the championship so easy last year. They think they can continue to win the constructors with only one hand. I don't know.
There we go. Where are we going next?
So we're back to Road America, where Jamie had this amazing race, and it was fabulous, and it was a great. She got pole position by 0.021. Ollie said that her session was a bit drier, but it wasn't much. I mean, all the way down the times, it was so close that her session was slightly quicker. That she was quickest in, take that pole, and then fend off Louis Foster all the way around. But we discussed it. So the main race, obviously, at Road America was the IndyCar race. Scandal over there. Oh, social media, the world we live in was flipping. Augusto Canapino, this Argentinian, it was a stock car driver, stock car means saloon cars in Argentina, superstar for many years that came over to IndyCar, I think only a year and a half ago now, and just stunned with his speed. An amazing natural talent. Anyway, going back to that Detroit mayhem, it was almost a farce when they're all outbreaking into that tight hairpin. So he got taken out by Teo Pourchaire, which is one of many takeouts of the hairpin by 2 drivers. So Colapinto's Argentinian fan base, who were fairly vocal because they had a go at someone last year. I can't remember now. they started sending death threats and hate mail to Teo Pourchaire on his social media. So poor old Teo said, well, I'm getting hit by this. But Calapinto, instead of saying sorry, he actually said, I've never seen any death threat. He actually almost tried to defend his Argentinian fan base. So it's all kicked off. So the team he drove for, Junkers Hollinger. Oh, yes, it was God, who was his teammate last year? I'll get that name in a minute. I remember it was a controversial. So they've got a specific relationship. McLaren, that Pourchaire was driving for, they got some team set up together. So they pulled out of that. So Junkers Hollinger are on their own. Then Calapinto apparently decided not to race due to mental issues, withdrew from the race. So it's all kicked off. So Callum Ilott it was Callum Ilott that was his teammate last year. And Ilott upset him. He held him up or didn't let him run a race because he had when Colapinto had faster tyres or something. So Ilott had the Argentinian social media on him. So social media, a bit of controversy. So we all thought that going to the Great Road America, we'd have a lovely normal race and that this lunacy of Detroit would be over. And yet it was almost the first dozen laps were more people hitting people than ever had seen at Road America.
It was crash bang wallop, wasn't it? Really,
just
big
for
time.
a while, yeah. But I'm ashamed it started this first corner because this rookie Linus Lindqvist, who was the NXT champion about 3 years ago, dominated NXT that we said Jamie Chadwick's in. There was a fantastic qualifying, and they do their qualifying again so much better than Formula One. But you couldn't tell Formula One's at IndyCar where they'd hate it. Because they go out, they split the field into 2 12s. It's amazing. They sit in the pit lane all the time, they're not in garages. And as soon as the red-green light goes, you see 12 cars all just peel out and come onto the track.
It's crazy. The pit lanes over there. I've never over here.
Yeah.
Well, I say over here in Europe, in Formula One. Sorry, not just in Europe. It's quite sort of dignified, isn't it? But they just all go out together.
Yeah, they're very narrow. But so the 12 go down to 6 from each session. Then those 2 6. So there's another 12 in the second session. Then the top 6 go through to this fastest 6. It was all done in the rain initially, but it was drying track. So it was who's going to be out last. They were all on slicks. It was tension was building. And then Joseph Newgarden had this monstrous crash at the kink, which is just easy peasy flat in the dry, but not in the wet. It was one of those classic cases. I've often talked about this again, one of my bugbears, about the driver coaches are obsessed with looking through the corner. You must always look ahead. I keep on saying, yeah, but you've got to also keep an eye on the outside of your car, which Newgarden put on wet curbs. Yeah. So as he turned into the corner, he was just a passenger, but had this huge shunt. But through these dangerous conditions and tricky conditions came this Linus Lundqvist to get pole position for Ganassi, a rookie in India. It's wonderful storylines. But then sadly, having led into the turn 1 at the start, his teammate, another Ganassi member, another youngster just making his way, Marcus Armstrong, the Kiwi, who had his best result at Detroit, he finished 3rd. But he just tapped into the back of Lundqvist halfway. I think Lundqvist had a bit of an opposite lot moment and maybe backed out of it slightly, and Armstrong was on it. But anyway, he sent him spinning middle, the leading car. So the pack went everywhere. Joseph Newgarden, who was following Colton Herta, punted Herta up the back big time, which put him out. And Herta had been the fastest all weekend, pretty much. He was the favourite to win the race. But Armstrong got a drive-through penalty for punting Lundqvist, and Newgarden got nothing for punting. So Herta wasn't very pleased about that. Anyway, so that was turn 1. There were several other offs before the whole race settled down into a slightly pedestrian and not so exciting race where Penske had a 1-2-3 finish. Will Power broke a 2-year barren run of not winning to come first. Newgarden with a new chassis, complete rebuild overnight. He came to finish 2nd. We should have drive-through penalties. He punted Herta. And then Scotty McLaughlin, the other Penske car, finished 3rd. Herta recovered a 6th after another couple of off-course excursions, about 5 pit stops, everybody else's 3, and came to get 6th. Grosjean had one a better. I never know with Romain. He's so frustrating because sometimes I think, oh gosh, you should be in a better team and winning. But he goes out in first practice and turn 1, the last turn, lap 1, he just got it on the grass under to put it in the wall. So he missed the dry qualifying session, went out in the wet practice session 2, and then qualified in the way he qualified. We got a 7th. So he's a mercurial sort of talent.
Yeah, but
So, yeah, a bit of
Mercurial,
pedestrian.
I think you would describe someone Mercurial as being exceptional, and
I
he
know,
is.
wrong word, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think
What's
he's
an odd?
exceptional.
What's a hot and cold talent then?
Hot and cold talent.
That's what I meant to say.
He's hot and
But
cold.
he is a hot and cold talent.
He's inconsistent.
I want a competition below. You don't do enough comments on this stuff. Go to the YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify, go to YouTube, put a comment. I need to know the best word for hot and cold talent.
Never did I think I would compare my driving to Roman Grosjean because we're a million miles apart. But actually,
You're
hot and cold talent. I am very inconsistent. I'm either on or off, and there's sort of.
I suppose inconsistent is the word, but that's a boring. It means when you're hot and cold, it means you're really, really good from some races and really, really bad for other races.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, but I mean, it's just great watching them go around Road America. It was just wonderful. It's just a gorgeous circuit. Plenty of action. And over in California, the NASCAR boys went on a road course, one of their few road courses at Sonoma.
What are we doing NASCAR for BTCC? Surely BTCC
we come
warrants.
home last. We always come home last. This is an international podcast. We do it globally before coming to our home things.
Okay.
Sometimes we might mix it up. I just happened to write it that way today. Well, again, there was lots of madness going on the first 20 or 30 laps. There were about 7 yellow flag series with lots of people bouncing off the walls and coming back on again. Again, it was just great to see these big NASCARs being hurled around corners and over hills. It's a wonderful looking track, Sonoma. Doesn't usually get much overtaking. But this time, instead of a boring finish, a thrilling finish. It was about midnight last night where I was nodding off, having watched all the Formula One and Indycar. Someone called Kyle Larson, who some people are fans of, in the number 5. It was quite to describe what happened with the strategy. At the end of the race, when he was interviewed, he said, "I don't really know what's going on. I didn't understand the strategy. I was just trying to hit every lap because they kept him out for longer before the final pit stop." So the other drivers were pulling away from him on fresh tyres that had come out of the pits. But his team kept him out. So he was almost the last to pit. So therefore, he had fresher tyres. And he came out in 8th place. He had been leading a lot. So he had been running out front for most of the race. So he tracked down these two, Chris Buescher's Ford and Martin Truex's Toyota, who were leading. They were battling for the lead. And it was just last with about 5 laps to go. I think he caught them both up. We had a great battle. We had 3 wide at one stage. Crofty would have been going mad through the... But of course, the problem with the early stoppers, their tyres were now more worn. So Larson had better rubber. They're also running out of fuel, both of them. So it was all quite dramatic. But Larson got through to take a magnificent win. And he's a Californian boy, so it's his sort of hometown. Buescher dropped back to 3rd, I think.
Home state.
Martin Truex ran out of fuel, approaching the line. He got around the final hairpin, halfway up the straight to the finish line, and the blooming thing ran out of fuel on him. So he got it home on the starter motor.
Wow!
But it was about 2 or 3 or 4 minutes. In fact, I think Larson was coming around on his parade lap and doing donuts at the final turn hairpin, while Truex was still. It only got him 27th place because it just meant he did 1 more lap, so he qualified as the last car on the lead lap. So lots of drama, lots of joy, beautiful circuit.
So what would have happened if Kyle Larson went up behind him and gave him a bump draft
and push him over the line?
Yeah, Kyle's already finished. What would have happened there? Would that be allowed? It would, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think there is a rule about pushing people. You're not allowed. They did bring a rule out, remember, because Truex was pushing someone who had a 7-cylinder motor, didn't they? One of the last 2 races I mentioned this story that he'd lost a cylinder, and so he was quick around the corners, and Truex trying to push him. So entertaining. Americans motorsport entertains as always.
Where we go? Okay, so we are coming home now. We're going to Isle of Man or Thruxton,
which is almost not home. I mean, is it British? I don't know.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah, but is it like a Monaco principality? It's got its own parliament.
Yeah, it's got its own tax
British.
haven
It is British, yeah, but they are Manx. Yeah, well, Michael Dunlop, first of all, he equalled Uncle Joey's 26.
But more importantly, talking of Manx, Phil, who does our podcast, he's from bloody Isle of Man.
Oh,
let's give him a big shout out. He was there. Yes, sorry, Phil.
So
not Phil, are you, Tiff?
Michael, he equalled Uncle Joey's 26 record. They're awful rain, then rain cancellations and days cancelled and shit. I don't know how they get through all their races, to be honest, the problems they have. Then he won 3 more races last week. Not the final Superbike race because his bike broke down. And I've forgotten who fell off. Oh, here we go. Tiff always forgets the name when he has a story. Hickman, yeah. So Hickman was going to try and win it. Who did win it on the final race, the final Superbike race? We should give them a mention. We can't just mention the people that... I won't find it.
Chris Harris was out for dinner with... He's out with Dunlop, I think, Michael Dunlop. And it's just, you would never think that this guy's going around so fast. You look at him, he just looks like, an ordinary... Well, he is an ordinary bloke, but he just looks so normal. And
you can't say that anymore. What does a normal person look like?
I'm trying to be polite. But he looks... He's just like my age. You just wouldn't... You think it'd be a young sort of super fit athlete of a rider, but this, incredible, absolutely.
Incredible. Hickman had this video. He dropped it on Twitter as he dropped it, and then he walked back into the village, went down the pub and had a pint. Apparently,
that's brilliant.
So there were some nasty accidents. I don't think any fatalities, which is so wonderful news whenever they finish the TT. Yeah. And there was some couple of badly injured riders, but. So even though the weather was so on and off, they seemed to have had a reasonable weekend. And so Michael Dunlop, the superstar of TT, but everyone that rides around there is a superstar as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely,
it's the most daunting track. Then right back home, right up the road from me at Thruxton, the BTCC boys were bashing around. Jake Hill had 2 wins, although he didn't win the second race, but he did win it in the end because Ingram got penalised. Which brought in the tyre stack story. The trouble is, this BMWs, the rear-wheel drive, have still got a huge advantage at the start. Now, I remember 3 or 4 years ago, there was a huge fuss about, or 6 or 7 years ago, they kept on giving them a taller first gear and trying to get the engine mapping to reduce the torque at low revs. And yet the way Jake Hill just took off with his BMW at both starts just disappeared. And Tom Ingram on pole had a terrible start in the first race, but recovered to 4th. And the second race, he caught up Hill, and I think it was Hill. Who was he trying to overtake? It must have been Hill. They came into the chicane side by side with Tom on the outside, but very early, without any contact, he just decided to straight line it. And I
thought you'd say Tom was on the inside. He was on the outside
outside the right-hand turn.
Yeah.
So he was hoping to claim the inside for the left-hand bit in the middle.
Yeah,
but very early on, he just did the old. I was pushed, but I don't think he was pushed. And eventually, he was given a 2-place drop, so he didn't win race 2. He did on the road.
But it frustrated me a little bit as a fan because I like Tom Ingram, and I wanted him to do well there. But I was frustrated that it's after the race. He just won the race. You get that euphoria.
But this is what the Americans do. That I've often said. They have a bloke watching the screen that doesn't, within half a lap, you've told, give that place back.
But he must have known. Tom must have known in his heart of hearts. If that happened the other way around,
I was watching.
Just give up the place.
Give the place. Yeah,
exactly.
By then, I think the person he overtook had dropped another place.
Yeah, because he had to compromise.
He slowed But whatever, just there has to be I'm sorry, some bloke in a box that says, give that place up now. Let's not muck about. And you just have to get used to it.
Well, on Thursday, they were putting the tyre stacks in as we filmed there, by the way, on Thursday. So,
on a great YouTube video, which you should look at, which is fun, a little fun extra we filmed. Go on Lovecars and watch the launch of Paul's catering return. But no, Tim's brilliant at BTCC. He makes that BTCC weekend as far as I can say. He's got great opinions. He says it really well until he comes to tyre stacks. And he just kicks off every time there's a tyre stack. Oh, that's absolutely ridiculous. That other mini bin on its roof. But he never comes up with his solution. He says, if the MSUK and BTCC and TOCA can't come up with a technical way of sorting it, this is ridiculous. He just kicks off. But I think it's until someone comes up with a better, it's the best solution. And I think the GT drivers at Donington were happy when they put the tyre stacks because people were just straight lining things and getting faster and faster lap times. And yes, it's a hazard if you hit it. But I mean, if you have an S-bend at Monaco or some of those Canadian corners, the exit is a wall, So if you run wide on the exit of a right, left, right, you hit a wall. But it's just a tyre stack. I know sometimes an innocent driver gets hit because the tyre stack rolls into the track. But, innocent drivers get hit in races. If someone spins, he may well take out an innocent driver. I mean, the hazards of motor racing are there. But I think we have to stop corner cutting. And it's always at chicanes that is the problem when it's a right, left, right sequence, because you always get into that sort of mode. And he just kicked off. But there isn't,
lots of people do. Lots of very, very experienced, very exceptional drivers despise them. Personally, I think I've only raced
tyre stacks.
Yeah, a few places
they're probably
Snetterton. I actually think they're a good thing because, like you said, it stops you from cutting the corner. You cannot go any further to the left or right if there's a tyre stack there. Donington, that's another place, and I've seen a couple of big accidents with them. But like you said, if there's a wall there, pit lane wall or whatever, you're going to hit that. So personally,
funny enough, on the left-hand element of Thruxton, which might not everybody know, but when I was racing Formula Fords, that was an Armco barrier. So the whole left-hand inside curve was a full Armco barrier all the way around. So if you went a bit too quick, you clanged the barrier.
And you say that Tim Harvey makes the BTCC, but I think their lineup is brilliant, all of them.
They all are, I know.
Yeah,
Paul gets even more. Paul's even more angry about tyre stacks. Don't get Paul involved in this, he gets. But the point is, on that left-hand apex, they put the tyre stack so far inside. But of course, all these drivers, they still apex on the tyre stack. So, wherever you put the tyre stack, and they got four wheels off the grey bit. If you watch the slow-mos and watch the cars going through, they've actually got all four wheels on the painted curb, which is straight lining the left-hand apex, making it an easier corner. So if they're going to apex on the tyre stack anyway, let's push the tyre stack out to the edge of the flipping grey bit and make it, that is how the track was designed. That is the bit of road I raced round in the Formula Ford days. And if I made a mistake, I hit a flipping steel barrier. So as they apex anyway, put the flipping things to the edge of the road. Sorry, Tim, I know we agree on almost 99% of things, but why you get so upset when someone hits a tyre stack, I've no idea. Otherwise, what do we have? 5-second penalties for 10 drivers at the end of a race because they all, and it needs a steward or to write down the numbers of how many times who's been off the road, or you need electronic stuff. But how much is the cost of putting electronic lines and electronics and all that? Is the other people. A lot of people talk about that. People talk about rev limiters being cut or engine revs cut. If you don't know, come up with a good idea, Tim, and I'll back you. So that was the TT. Okay. Obviously, well, reverse grid. Sutton still leads the championship. He had a third and a fifth, and then he won the reverse grid race from fourth on the grid.
That was his first win of the season. Can you believe that?
I know, amazing, isn't it? Because he's always led the championship. So although he didn't win on the first weekend, he got more points. And that means he has less boosts all the time. So he gets less boost for qualifying, less boost in the races. So he's struggling always by having that less boost.
He had a bit of bad luck in race 2, his splitter or something. So it affected the car a little bit, but he managed to hang on to fourth place.
I think he might have hit a tyre stack with it, which wasn't bad luck. He had a bent splitter because he tried to cut the corner and hit the furniture. So he got the correct punishment for being out of control. If there was no tyre stack there, he would have gone 4 miles an hour through the chicane and overtaken someone having extra speed on the way out. I'm
with you. I'm absolutely with you the whole way. There was so it's between four of them really. The four big guys are fighting out of the top.
Turkington had a bad weekend. I mean, Turkington was second on the. He was second on the grid for the reverse grid race, but still dropped back way out of the top 6, I think. So obviously Jake Hill's the one that's caught up madly, very close to Sutton. He's only at 5 points behind. Ingram's still lurking in third, but Turkington dropping away. But I'm sure he will be back in the 4-person race for the championship with there. And
there was a lot of good stuff at Thruxton over the weekend. The weather held off.
Minis were racing.
There was
10 wide.
Formula 4, F4 as well. Formula 4 as well. Yeah, there was lots of good stuff. It was good to watch. Good to see.
So next weekend, some big racing coming. There's some major events coming this weekend, but the highlight is undoubtedly, you've got to be at Silverstone, everybody. Paul Woodman is coming back to Caterham's with a video launching his product now on YouTube. So that is obviously the place. And some of you might be tempted to go to Le Mans for a little sports car race, you know, go there on the Wednesday and Thursday, set up your camp, have beers all weekend, watching qualifying, go to the town for some French food, watch the parade, see all the superstar drivers, watch a 24-hour race with Ferraris and Toyotas and Lamborghinis and BMWs and all the other makes I can't think of, plus the GT class and plus the LMP2. But no, I wouldn't go there if I could be at Silverstone on Sunday. So,
where are you going to be? Where are you going to be on Sunday? Silverstone.
Oh, Silverstone, unfortunately.
Do you know what else is
filming
going
you.
on there? Just to whet your appetite, Britcar.
Probably more Caterhams.
And there lots of Caterhams and Formula 4 as well. So there's quite a lot happening. You'll be tucked up in the BRDC watching Le Mans.
Or you could go to
getting very
Scotland.
wet.
You could go to Scotland if you live in Britain to watch the Superbikes at Knockhill. That'll be a spectacular spectacle around those leaps and hollows. If you're down in Italy, the World Superbikes with Max Verstappen heading the pack at Misano. And of course, there's a NASCAR race around the 7/8 mile short circuit of Iowa. Just in case.
There's always a NASCAR race. Wishing our mate Ryan Cullen, he's Vector Sport LMP2 this weekend. I hope he has a good solid race at Le Mans.
Just make sure you survive Saturday, Paul, because I'm not there till Sunday, all right?
Come and watch. Not you, Tiff. Tiff is coming to watch, but if you're around this weekend, but it is really good racing. You got, as I said, you got Britcar and F4 as well. We're in the national paddock, so right next to the BRDC, so he'll be happy. So yeah, come and watch. Buy your tickets online, and hopefully see you there.
Vote for keeping the F1 rules the same. Vote, keep the rules for more years. Cheers.
Thanks for joining. Cheers.